So, have you ever found yourself agreeing to plans that you didn't really want to be a part of just to avoid conflict or disappointing someone? If so, imagine this. It's a Friday night, you're exhausted from a long week of work, and all you want to do is stay in and relax and see what shenanigans Joe is up to in London. But then your friend calls and reminds you that they invited you to a party. And you know you never gave a direct answer to them about the party because you didn't think you'd want to go. And now you're for sure, you are 100% sure that you don't have the energy for it. What do? Do you say yes, even though it's the last thing you want to do? Or do you muster the courage to just say no? Or better yet, do you lie and find an excuse for not going, like you're working late or something like that, instead of being honest that you never really wanted to go in the first place? If this situation sounds familiar to you, you're the person I'm trying to drag right now. It's absolutely you, for sure. Today's episode is for you. We are going to talk about breaking free from people pleasing and learning how to say no without losing friends or hurting the ones you love in the process. Stay tuned as I share some game-changing tips that will empower you to prioritize your well-being and transform your relationships. So trust me, this is an episode you do not want to miss. Welcome to the Generation Freedom podcast. I'm Nadie, I'm your host, and I'm a licensed professional counselor in Houston, Texas. Since starting my private practice, I realized I wanted a platform to share what I've learned on my journey to finding myself and my own freedom in a way that I can't do in session. So I started this podcast as a way to use my voice and expertise to share how I'm learning to improve my wellness and connection to myself every day. This platform is for you if, like me, you're working towards becoming who you truly want to be and the best version of that person. So expect to hear all things mental health, finding life balance, wellness, and interpersonal relationships. I really hope you enjoy the content on this podcast, but please know that what you hear on this platform is not intended to be a substitute for a relationship with a mental health professional. Okay, let's get started. Welcome back, everybody. Today's episode, as you heard earlier, is about a challenge that many of us face. Are you worried about hurting the people you care about or losing your friends? That's what we're going to talk about, how to solve some of that. We're going to dive into the ways that you can stop people pleasing without compromising your relationship or neglecting your well-being. And right before we get started, I got a request from a listener to let you guys know when I record what I'm drinking. I will do that today. Take a little sip. This morning, I am drinking a hot tea because I'm recording this first thing in the morning and I tend to have quite the rasp and I don't want to sound like a goat this morning. So I'm drinking a hot tea. This tea is a turmeric, cinnamon, ginger, moringa tea, and it's delicious. So there you go. Request fulfilled. So to get us started into delving into different ways to say no as a people pleaser, let's first understand what people pleasing is so we can get on the same page and make sure we all have the same definition here. So what is people pleasing and why is it an issue? People pleasing typically means a person that often prioritizes the needs and wants of others above their own, sometimes at the cost of their mental health and physical health. And doing behaviors like that can lead to feelings of resentment or burnout and in most cases, a loss of personal identity, which is really, really hard for a lot of people when you get to a point where you don't recognize your wants and needs anymore, and all you're doing is taking care of people around you. So remember, part of this episode is starting to get your mind wrapped around the idea that it's really important to take care of yourself and create healthy boundaries in your relationship so that you can take care of your friends and family and loved ones better, not in a way that you're running on fumes or angry with them or resentful towards them because of everything you do for them. That's part of the people-pleasing journey, part of reversing the people-pleasing journey. Let's start to explore some ways to say no without hurting or losing the ones that we love now that we have a better understanding of people-pleasing. The first way to start to say no is to be honest. Cliche, but it is true. Be honest. So if you remember the scenario from the intro, if you had been honest in the first place that you didn't want to go, you probably would have avoided that last minute guilt and shame of trying to tell your friend you didn't want to go to the party and ending up lying to them and then feeling more and more guilt and, spiraling into that cycle. If you were to start by being honest with yourself about your limits and then being honest with others about your limits, this could change the way you approach things and make it a lot easier on you in the long run. One of my favorite books, also kind of a cliche, is The 4 Agreements. And my favorite of the 4 agreements is be impeccable with your word. And the book says something like, be impeccable with your word, speak with integrity, say only what you mean, and use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. And I share that to say that instead of making up excuses to people when you don't want to do things, let people know you're overwhelmed. Let people know you need to take some time for yourself. Let people know that you're not interested in those kinds of parties because you're more introverted and that's too much going on for you, or you spend a lot of energy talking to people all week and you don't think that you can spend an evening talking to more people. Be honest about that. And if you are, you typically will see that returned understanding because you gave people that clarity and that honesty with them. So that's number 1. Be honest. It's a perfect way to say no. Number 2, I would also suggest to you to offer alternatives. So let someone know, like when you can't commit to something, right? Suggest another time or another solution that works better for you. Like, even if it's something as big as a birthday party and you know your friend or your aunt or your grandma wants you to come to this birthday party so bad and you really want to be there, but it's not in your spirit to do, or you don't have the energy, or whatever the reason is, it doesn't really matter what it is, but you know you don't want to go. Offer an alternative. Say, Grandma, how about I hang out with you the day after the party and I'll come over and I'll help clean up and we can talk, just the 2 of us. Hey, I don't think I'm going to be able to give you a ride to the doctor, but can I send you an Uber? Let me send you an Uber instead. So I have a lot going on my schedule and a lot of deadlines to meet before Monday. How about I go ahead and get that done for you by next Wednesday? You get where I'm going? Alternatives. Offer alternatives to people. Because sometimes saying no it can be very stark and feel harsh, and that's part of why we don't like to say it to people, because it feels so final and like it just comes across intense. And if you are a self-identified people pleaser, it might feel like, oh no, I can't just say no, and I have to have a good reason as well. So alternatives can help mitigate that and allow you to say no in a softer, gentler way, if you will. The next way to say no is to practice assertiveness. In assertiveness, you communicate your needs clearly and confidently. And in this way, you show that you have the right to say no without feeling guilty. Assertiveness is really important. It allows the other person to know that they are important to you, but so are you. It's not the type of communication like passive communication where it shows that they're more important to you and you're less important, nor is it aggressive, where it comes across like they're less important to you and you're more important. It puts everyone on equal playing fields the more assertive and just direct and clear and confident you are. And the fourth way to say no is to set boundaries. So if you think about the previous three ways to say no, being honest, offering alternatives, and practicing assertiveness. When you were honest, you told somebody, this is a thing that I don't know if I can do or I'm comfortable with or whatever. And then you offered some options to them instead. If you then establish boundaries and communicate them to the people around you, this is what's going to help you to maintain that healthy balance so that you don't push people away because you're starting to change and start to prioritize both your needs and theirs. And mind you, the caveat here is when it comes to setting boundaries is that you have to establish clear boundaries with yourself, for yourself first. The same as when I said earlier about being honest. You have to be honest with yourself first so that you can be honest with others about what's going on with you. You have to figure out what my boundaries even are. And you want to take time with that. But once you do that, you're able to tell people, communicate to people what those boundaries are. And it's a perfect way to say no. It's a perfect way to say no, thank you as well. By using these techniques and generally starting to say no, you're not disregarding the needs of those you love. You're taking them into consideration with your own. In fact, you're actually setting a positive example of self-care and personal growth and confidence and self-love even. Remember, taking care of yourself is crucial to maintaining strong relationships, maintaining healthy relationships, because you can't be burnt out. You can't be running on empty because you won't be as good to the people. You'll be giving them like just the crumbs and the fumes of what's left of you. So it is absolutely imperative to take care of yourself and prioritize yourself if you want healthy, strong relationships. So you have to be at your best to give your best to these people that you love. Those are 4 amazing ways to say no as a people pleaser. But as a bonus, I want to give you guys a few tips to help you prioritize yourself, because I know that part might not always click immediately. So I want to give you some ways to help prioritize yourself so that you can say no, and you can do so more confidently and intentionally knowing that you're setting those boundaries for a really good reason. So let's jump into part 2 of this conversation. Hey, Nadie here. I just wanted to pop in really quickly to remind you to please subscribe to this podcast if you're enjoying it, if you made it this far, and give us a rating on Spotify or Apple or both if you have the time. Giving 5-star ratings gets this podcast out to more and more ears and to those that need this type of content. So if you want to support the podcast, please give us 5 stars on whatever platform you are listening on. And if you want to support the podcast with your wallet, there is a link in the show notes that says support this podcast. If you would like to donate to us, if you want to help make sure that we have everything we need to keep getting episodes out to you every single week and improving our quality every single week, that would be an amazing way to help as well. So again, please subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an upload. And thanks again so much for listening. Now let's get back to the episode. So I don't want to leave you guys high and dry and confused about how to change your mindset on prioritizing yourself in the process of saying no and dismantling those people-pleasing behaviors. So here's a few tips on how to prioritize your well-being and make ending the people-pleasing era that you're in a lot more powerful. So the first thing I want you to remember is to practice self-compassion. What I mean by that is remind yourself that it is okay to prioritize your own needs, that you deserve to be taken care of too, because you are a person. What makes you so special and so different that you can't get the same care and attention and devotion and all of that the people around you receive from you? And sometimes I will say this, in self-compassion, you won't always be able to do every single thing on your list or save every single person that needs to be saved. So this is where we practice giving ourselves grace, as we say, and just having that compassion for ourselves that we are human. Not only do we deserve all the love, all the self-care, all the things, but also we may not be able to do everything for everybody like we want to. And that's okay. You are human. You cannot be multiple places at once. You cannot do things at an unlimited and an infinite, like you don't have an infinite amount of energy to give away. There's only so much. And it goes to multiple different places. So please have compassion with yourself in understanding those things. Another way to prioritize your well-being, or another thing to consider, is to start identifying your values. This might sound a little bit different, but hear me out. It's really important to determine what's important to you in your life and make sure that your actions align with those values. That way, it's a lot harder for you to worry about somebody that needs something, I don't know, minor or very trivial, or that you have to attend every single event for, XYZ person and all of that, because you'll just be able to make the decision easier because you'll be operating in alignment and congruence with yourself and the things that matter to you. So going to your nephew's christening might be really important to you because that's something that's in the eyes of God and very aligned with your values, versus going to another such and such's gender reveal when they're also planning to have a baby shower. Do I need to do both? Do I care about that more, or do I care about this more because I only have this much time? The christening is probably more important to me, so I'll prioritize that. You get what I mean? It can be a lot simpler and a lot easier to choose and prioritize those things when you know you already have in your heart and mind what your values are. But it's just very important that you determine those for yourself and make sure then that your actions align with them. The next thing that I'll suggest to you as far as prioritizing your well-being is to seek support. This is extremely important. Surround yourself with people who respect your boundaries once you get good at sharing them, that is. And also surround yourself with people who understand the importance of self-care. You can't always get rid of your family, and I know you can't exit every single friendship and relationship, all that stuff. That's not what I'm saying. What I mean is bring more people around you who do respect your boundaries, who do get it, who do validate that for you and understand the importance of self-care. Maybe you see them taking care of themselves. Maybe they say no to you sometimes. And while it doesn't always feel good, you know in your heart that you're like, man, good for them, because I should say no more. Surround yourself with more of those people, so that when you say a boundary, they're like, oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, totally. Do what you got to do. I'll see you next week instead. It's no big deal. Seek support for these things and the changes you want to make. The people in your life that don't get it, you may not be able to remove every single one from your life, but you can put more focus and attention and build tighter relationships with those that do get it. There you have it, friends. Saying no does not mean you're disregarding the needs of those you love. It means you're choosing to prioritize your own well-being. By learning to say no and setting boundaries, you can maintain strong relationships that way and become a more authentic and true version of yourself. So I really hope that these tips help you start to break free from people pleasing and get you out of this era of your life and lead a more fulfilling one. Thank you so much for joining the Generation Freedom Podcast today. Until next time, I'll talk to you soon.